On Rockies, continuing to look at the changes coming to baseball. We've talked a little bit about it, but let's kind of dive into the philosophy of it and discuss how much is too much optimization and how much change is too much change. Is there such a thing as too much change for a game as old as baseball?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 18th day of January in the year 2023. I am your Rockies fan extraordinaire, Paul Holden, bringing you all sorts of daily Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You are in the right spot, because that's what we do around here. We talk about the Colorado Rockies. You can find us on YouTube. You can be part of the live chat just like Andy is right now. Yo, Andy. What's up, Nicholas, as well? You can ask your questions live when you're part of our live chat, which it happens every time we record an episode, just about. You can also find us on Twitter at LO Rockies. You can find me at Paul Holden 33. And you can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And folks, today I wanted to talk about the changes coming to baseball and highlight what's actually coming, but the kind of the idea of all of these changes. And I'm curious because baseball, of course, has a history to drag its feet when it comes to changing, and there's a lot of history, there's a lot of tradition. It's probably one of the most traditional sports out there, one of the most traditional things that I've kind of experienced in my life when it comes to unwritten rules and this and that and the proper way to do anything. There's a lot of things you have to kind of consider and remember when it comes to the game of baseball. And baseball is continuing to develop and change, and it's going in different directions. And some people are very excited. Some people aren't so excited. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that and see what your take was or is on some of these rule changes as well, because I've changed a lot in the last year, I would say. Before, I was pretty traditional. One thing that I never was necessary, I always was in favor of, was universal DH. That was something I was always all for. There was a bit where I thought it added a little wrinkle of fun to baseball, but it's just kind of silly when you break things down and you kind of look at it and you say, why are we doing that? So that was kind of the first thing that changed. And then I was like, well, you can't ban the shift, because the shift is managers and teams using the data and using their understanding to put their players in the best position to succeed on defense. And you can't, I couldn't really knock it. But then you watch the shift and then you look at the alignments of teams, especially last season, and you're just kind of, it's not the game you recognize. It's not the game that you grew up playing. No, I mean, I would say this might not be true, but at least for me, you weren't growing up with drastic shifts. You weren't growing up with incredible access to the players to know that this guy is going to go after and go out and get a ground ball to the right side 70% of the time. The shift is kind of jarring. It's something that when you look at it, it's kind of one of those things you're like, well, yeah, and I was that. But you kind of sit there and you say, is that really the best way to play the game? And the more I watched last year, the more I did not think that was the game we wanted, that we wanted to watch. One, we know for a fact it is not an entertaining watch. But in terms of the game, I think that gets a little too far away from the core concept of the game. But it's, again, there's so many things about it that you can kind of like counteract it. But it's, again, why can't I put my players in the best spot to win? I mean, the question always remained, and I kind of get this too. I know that there's probably baseball minds that have debunked it, but It really doesn't make a lot of sense why batters didn't completely readjust their thing and just slash the ball to the left side of the field the best they could. Probably because it's not very easy to do that with 100 miles an hour thrown at your head that then breaks through and over the plate. But, you'd think that adjustment to counteracting the shift would be easier, but it's not. Hitting is so difficult already. Pitching is at such an elite level. I think this is a sacrifice you'd be willing to make for the overall better product and betterment of the game. Players are going to be better. There's going to be more offense. And I was talking to some people. This whole conversation started from a really interesting discussion I was having on one of my online communities, the Mario Baseball community. We're all about Mario Baseball. We play it online, all sorts of cool stuff. But there are people that are adamant about baseball needing these changes and it being at a state of absolute unwatchableness. They don't care and things of that nature, and they can't wait for these changes. To some other people that were saying, there's already been too much change to the game of baseball. And I just wonder, I sit here and I wonder how much optimization is too much. Can you optimize too much? Should there be kind of that layer of, you really get into this something if you I feel like dealing with is not the best way, but understanding what comes with it. When I talk about my love for baseball, I don't knock people or get defensive or get angry when people say they find it boring. They don't enjoy it. Because when you really think about what baseball is, it's not that exciting in things. But if you understand the game, if you look at the parts of the game, if you can follow the game, if you can understand each situation, then you love it. Then you fall in love with the fact and you understand that the struggle and the difficulty is part of the game too. And I think a lot of people develop that appreciation. And this isn't the only case, but I think if a lot of people don't play baseball for an extended period of time throughout their growing up to where you can kind of get to, you're competing against kids your age and whether you might stop. And it's not so much coach interference, but just kind of the grind that it takes to be successful at baseball. It's also why I appreciate baseball greatness. So in that same question, shouldn't we be asking the greatest players to do it, to be great, to overcome these odds like the shift and things of that nature? Yeah, maybe. But are we already making it way more difficult than it needs to be? Because baseball, before all this stuff and before these elite level pitchers, it was still hard. There might have been some better offense, but still something to think about. And I want to go back to that optimization thing, and I want to dive into the live chat as well. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. It was a wild weekend of football, and you can get involved with all the pro football betting action throughout the playoffs at betonline.net. They even got future bets for you in terms of baseball. You can go check out some of the stuff that they got going on for the Rockies. They even got bets for the World Baseball Classic, which is around the corner as well. Got you covered for basketball, hockey, and everything in between at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find them there too at betonline.net. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about betonline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. Diving into the live chat, Annie Scrant says, is Connor Siebold a good move? Well, guess what, Connor? We talked all about that move yesterday. You got to go check out that pod, and you can find out on there. It's all available right here on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. And he follows that up by saying, I respect but hate the shift. It's a love-hate relationship because, right, again, it's the respect of putting your players in the best situation to win, but it's also what can you do to make sure that you're making the game a little bit more enjoyable for the fans and a little bit more possible to be successful. Mateo says, I'm a little bit skeptical about how people and some guys in the industry will embrace the new pitch clock rule, but I'm firmly convinced that it was a necessary step. Games were definitely too long. At Rock's Hot Takes follows up by saying, but do we actually think that the pitch clock will be strictly enforced? That's the thing. It's about it. That's part of it too, is enforcement. And I think it's going to be enforced. I think there was already enough talk of success of it at the minor league level. There were the instances where teams were penalized, and it didn't sound like players were being like overly penalized or it was something that it was going to be an issue. Now, it's certainly going to impact some players. For some players, like we saw with the Rockies last year, and boy, oh boy, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I'm gonna get it. Hold on. It's Colome. Colome. That's who it was. Alex Colome. He is going to struggle with that new rule, and that might be something where there might be some older pitchers that it could potentially force them out of the league if they are not going to make adjustments. I think that is an extreme scenario there, but I think there are some players that or pitchers that really do like to take their time that are not not in favor of this at all. Can't be something that you were there, but in terms of enforcement of these rules, I think most of them they've already tried at the minor league level. I think all of them that they've done that, other than I think the limits on defensive shifts. I don't necessarily know if that one was in AAA, but they've already done this. There has been there's been experience. So let's go here. We'll dive into an MLB.com piece here to discussing the new rule changes for 2023 from Anthony Castrovins here on MLB.com. In an effort to create a quicker pace of play, there will be a 30-second timer between batters. Between pitches, there will be a 15-second timer with the bases empty and a 20-second timer with runners on base. At last check, the pitch timer had reduced the average time of game in minor league baseball by about 26 minutes. This rule, which includes limits on throws to first base, has also increased stolen base attempts. With this rule in place in the minors this season, steal attempts per game have increased from 2.23 in 2019 at a 68% success rate to 2.83 at a 77% success rate. So here's some of the rules. And honestly, for in that just piece, give me more stolen bases. Please make base running and make activity on the base path something more efficient. That's kind of a bummer if you can use or negate those the throwovers, but it's going to be an interesting challenge for the defense. That is a major change. The limits on throwovers and pickoffs, that is going to be a big adjustment for pitchers to make this year, especially when they're looking to kind of do that thing where they throw over a few times and draw things out. But that's a major rule. This one is the big one, I think. This and the shifts are the two huge changes. The pitch clock is going to change strategy. It's going to change approach from pitchers, and it's going to change philosophies. And again, if that means the Rockies can steal more bases, they should do so. Okay, let's read the rules of what this is going to be here, the pitch timer. The pitcher must begin his motion to deliver the pitch before the expiration of the pitch timer. Pitchers who violate the timer are charged with an automatic ball. Batters who violate the timer are charged with an automatic strike. Batters must be in the box and alert to the pitcher by the 8-second mark or else be charged with an automatic strike. With runners on base, the timer resets if the pitcher attempts a pickoff or steps off the rubber. Pitchers are limited to 2 disengagements, pickoff attempts or step-offs per plate appearance. 2 pickoff plate appearances per plate appearances. That is an interesting little wrinkle there, So how are you going to do that? How are you going to be able to keep your speedy people in check? What are you going to do there? There's going to be maybe some new pitch plays that they're going to have to try out. Maybe, I don't know if that's actually something they would try, but there is going to be an approach there. However, this limit is reset if a runner or runners advance during the plate appearance. Okay, so if they advance to second, you get 2 more. So if they steal on you, you're not done. You can still throw them back there, and you get 2 more. All right. If a third pickoff attempt is made, the runner automatically advances 1 base if the pickoff attempt is not successful. So you can still throw on a third pickoff and get them? That's interesting. Does that go for a 4th and a 5th and a 6th? Mound visit, injury timeouts, and offensive team timeouts do not count as a disengagement. If a team has used up all 5 of its allowed mound visits prior to the 9th inning, that team will receive an additional mound visit in the 9th inning. This effectively serves as an additional disengagement. Umpires may provide extra time if warranted by special circumstances. And so there you go on that. Interesting. That's a big change. And that changes. This is what we're talking about with optimization. This is a change to make the fan experience more optimal. This is a change to make the viewing experience more optimal. But it's not more optimal for pitchers. It's not the best case scenario. So as we see with these new rules and these impacts and these things, it's a delicate balance you have to walk because, yes, the focus is the game should be great and competitive and the integrity of the game is kept alive. But you know how you're able to afford that and like makes it really fun and kind of makes it as important and as big of a deal as it is? It's the fans. And let's be real, the baseball watching experience is good for baseball fans. We like it and people like going to the ballpark, sure, but in general, baseball is needed to do something different. And these are the type of things you need to try. These are the things you need to do to bring new life into the game. I think that you can kind of hyper focus on making something too optimal because you're never going to be able to. There's too many working pieces. There's too many sides. There's too many things to appeal to when it comes to running a baseball team and operating a baseball team and such. But there is an argument to be made of people saying, okay, this can be better. Because I do wonder how much fun the game has been in its state for players as well. I don't know. We'll dive into the live chat here. We will put a bow on our rule talk. We'll talk a little bit more about the live chat, and we'll see what's going on with Rockies fans here coming up in segment number 3. Wanted to thank you for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can also find us on YouTube. And when we stream our episodes live, you can be part of the live chat, just like so many folks are today. And let's dive back into our live chat to get our final takes here on the rules and see what ideas our fans have, the Rockies fans have. What if Major League Baseball made it where you can only have so many opportunities to use the shift per game and adjust it for things like playoffs? Let's see. I don't think that necessarily helps it. I think what they're doing by prohibiting where you can stay is the better option, because then you're still facing the situation of certain players are just going to have it, and it still kind of functions in necessarily the same way. I think by shading over, trying to get in between, I think that's the better way to handle shifts than still allowing, rovers in shallow center field to go through and do things like that. I think by putting limits and putting boundaries that you have to say, there are other sports where people have to stay in boundaries and have places where they have to be and be set. And I think that works for those. So we can see if that will work for baseball here coming up. Nicholas says, I despise the idea of a pitch clock. I think it's something we hate. If you don't like it, you've heard about it. I'm curious if you've watched minor league baseball. I haven't. So I have not. I have yet to really experience the pitch clock. I think there might have been a little bit of it in spring training last year. So maybe a taste of it. But I think with pitch clock and the impact on us, the fans, is we're just going to have to watch and see what happens next year when it comes to that. But as someone who for the people that work those games and work the baseball season, those 26 minutes that can be saved are precious. And I know we want to watch and enjoy our baseball as much as possible, but I don't think shaving 26 minutes off the game time is all that bad of a plan. Mateo says, don't get me wrong, I don't mean that games were getting boring because of the playtime, but I think the baseball should get a little injection of fast forward in terms of time. Yeah, and I think that's the mindset. Not change everything too much, but move it along. Take out, because there is things where people are sitting there saying, why is this guy thrown over to first 7 times in a row? Everyone boos, boo, boo. And he still does it. And then, either the person takes off or they go back. And it's kind of the same song and dance. So there is that's kind of a little annoying. As much as I do like baseball and I know how routine and how much it takes and how much people need that time to get set and prepared, it's also baseball. There's a whole bunch of there's a whole bunch of lollygagging that we can worry about here. Let's see here. At Rock's Hot Take says they're trying to speed up the game with ridiculous rule changes. Like the NFL, the umps are going to spend more time questioning the plays than just playing. This will not have the same impact on Major League Baseball versus minor league baseball. I don't know. AAA is at least pretty close. When you're looking for sample size for the closest model to a major league game, AAA is kind of it. There's different rules in college. There's different all sorts of stuff. So when you're looking for the closest replication of Major League Baseball outside of Major League Baseball itself, AAA and the minors are going to do it. But again, I don't have this much. I think I used to think the shift was the bigger deal than the pitch clock, but people are really curious about this. So again, I think I'm going to have to see about, I'm kind of in a wait and see type of approach with that one. Eric Harper asks, will a pitch clock have a negative effect on arm health? I don't think so. I don't necessarily. I mean, it could. It all depends on how much changing your routine, changing your approach, changing your game day preparation it's going to take for the players. I don't necessarily think we heard of a rash of injuries sweeping through the minor leagues last year as a result of this. So again, we have that sample size where I think we can see, but maybe I'm not sure. And our final question or our final comment here of the pod today comes from Stephen Cross, because this is a good little tease and something that we probably should talk about more and kind of as we look ahead. And again, I think the big thing for these rule changes is wait and see. We really don't know. We're speculating. We haven't had a full season with these rule changes. Will we love them? Will we hate them? We're going to find out real soon. Stephen Cross says, really hope Todd gets inducted next week. Saw a report from some writer out east that said that steroids are okay in baseball and Coors Field is not. I'm so tired of the Coors Field garbage. Stephen, I hope you tuned into our thing where we talked all about lazy analysis, because that, my friends, is lazy analysis. But if you want my take for Todd Helton, I think he's going to come up just short. I think I'm going to buy into those projections there. They're pretty darn good about those projections, but it is looking wonderful for our friend Todd Helton to get into the Hall of Fame. But folks, wonderful podcast today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you to everyone who is in the live chat today. You can be part of the live chat by following and subscribing to Locked On Rockies on YouTube. You can also find us on your favorite streaming service. Just search Locked On Rockies and you'll be taken to where you need to go. You can follow us on Twitter at LO Rockies. You can follow me at Paul Holden 33. And folks, you can stay up to date with all things Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, and Locked On Nuggets podcast. Locked On MLB Prospects has got you covered for your MLB prospect news. If you want to stay up to date with farm systems of all the teams, Lindsey Crosby has you covered. Wonderful show today, folks. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.